Hi, this is Will Stewart from OnlineChessLessons.net, and today I'll be presenting a game from the 2011 U.S. Championship Round 2 game between Gata Kamsky, he's got to be the tournament favorite, and Varuzhan Akobian is black. And so just a quick intro. Kamsky's got to be the favorite to win the event this year because the highest rated player in the States, HIkaru Nakamura, has elected not to play in the U.S. Championship this year because he is afraid that he would lose FIDE rating points. And as he is one of the top 5 rated players in the world in FIDE, around 2760, I believe, he doesn't want to lose FIDE points, so it's understandable. So Kamsky opens with e4, and I'm very impressed by how Kamsky played in this game. This is a French defense here, which has definitely been a favorite of Varuzhan Akobian's in the last few years. He's definitely an expert on the line. And so Kamsky plays f4 here. And alternatives to f4, you can see knight f3, although it's not very popular. Occasionally this line will happen, and white really just wants to preserve that pawn on d4, pawn on e5, play f4 maybe. You know, there's a ton of lines in the French. So pretty much what's going on is the players are battling for control of the center. And white wants to maintain this pawn on e5 and maintain his space advantage, and black wants to play moves like c5, knight c6, queen b6, and f6 to undermine the center that white has established, that strong point on e5. And so Kamsky plays a pretty cool line. It is kind of like a poison pawn variation in the French. And so not really a good way to defend this pawn on b2, because you don't want to play rook b1. This rook is going to be dead in the water here, while the queen is excellently placed on the center. And so rook b1, you don't want to do it. Queen c1, this just doesn't work. And playing b3 is absolutely terrible as well. It probably just loses on the spot almost. Something like, maybe not loses on the spot, but pretty close. Something like this. And this diagonal, don't need to really go any further here. This diagonal is just so strong for black. If he can get his rook over sometime, that's just giving black way too much play. So the whole point of the line is to sack the pawn. And Akobian takes it. And what does white get in exchange for this pawn sacrifice? Well, he's there's a couple different ways to play it here. I mean, I thought knight b5 was a move, but I guess this has been analyzed too heavily. Maybe white picks up an exchange here, but black is probably going to play c4, close the center. He'll recoup that knight on a8, and it's an unclear game. It seems like black is maybe doing okay for the exchange there. And so going back, Kamsky plays bishop b5, an interesting move, and now queen a5. So black snatched the pawn. He took the pawn. Now he came to a3 and came to a5. So he's taking a lot of moves to take that one pawn. And so now c4. So he wants to close the center because he's so behind in development, because he snatched that pawn. He wants to close the center and you know, kind of get his life together, kind of consolidate, you know, develop his pieces and consolidate the position. And so now f5 immediately by Kamsky. Castles and f5. Kamsky plays fantastically in this game. Not a move wasted. Every move very forcing, very pressing. And it's very tough to play against an opponent when you constantly have to react to their threats. So f5 right away. And obviously this is going to be absolutely terrible for black. So instead, knight b6, trying to get this bishop able to defend this here. And you know, knight b6, just trying to open up this bishop. Maybe he wants to play bishop d7 and castle, or pawn takes f5 and bishop e6 and castle. He probably wants a castle queenside. It seems like that's going to be a safe place after having closed the position with c4. Well, Kamsky will have none of it, and he plays queen e1, the start of a good plan. A very accurate move, because right after knight b6, all of a sudden it's very tough. Black can no longer retreat that queen. So the queen is misplaced on a5, and Kamsky's trying to exploit that. And after e takes f5, knight b6 also defends on d5. So if black can just play bishop e6 and castle queenside, it's probably going to be okay. a4. Seems like, you know, at first it was like I didn't totally get it, because, you know, he's just supporting the bishop on d5. But the real idea is that he wants to play bishop d2 and exploit the position of the black queen. And if bishop d2 immediately, black simply replies queen a3, and he can run back on that diagonal, the a3 to f8. So a4 reinforces the bishop, so the knight can move now. But I mean, the rook's also defending it. But more importantly, it takes away that a3 square, so white can play bishop d2. And bishop e6 and bishop d2. And black's queen is feeling very uncomfortable. And I mean, it's tough to say. I mean, what are you going to do? I mean, he can't. The knight, is not supporting the b4 square, so you can't block with a knight. And if you play like knight d7, okay, so you just took like 3 moves to get this bishop out, and it just runs right into knight takes d5, and all of a sudden black's position is collapsed. So knight d7, I mean, that's just the only move for black really was bishop b4. First sight, it seems to hold it together, and maybe black is doing okay, but Kamsky plays extremely well, and Akobian, by the way, he thought he's getting low on time here. He's got about 20 minutes. Kamsky has about 65. Rook takes b4, just sack the exchange, and obviously the knight is pinned, so queen takes b4, the only chance, the only move, and so now it looks like maybe knight takes d5. Like, this looked just fine. I wasn't entirely sure why Kamsky didn't play it, but I guess he, I mean, he's a super GM, so he knows what he's doing. But it seems to me that knight takes d5 was a good idea, but he plays knight e4 instead, and the idea is to get that knight on d6. So he really did not care about material in this game, really about the initiative and attack. And all of a sudden, assessing the position, black is up in exchange and 2 pawns, but white has a monster knight on d6. This bishop, the dark square bishop, is the black's dark squares are very weak, and especially on those diagonals. And black's king is very unsafe. Not to mention, black's queen is unable to come back and help his king out. If black could just hop that queen somehow back, he'd probably be doing okay, but it's not possible. And now knight takes b7. White is not trying to snatch pawns here. He's trying to loosen up the position of that knight on c6. a5 is also a possibility. So he's just trying to loosen up that knight on c6, not snatching pawns. Material is not the point. It's all about the initiative. Knight takes a4, and Akobian's got about 10 minutes. Kamsky about 24. And here, bishop b4 check. First sight, I thought it was kind of weird, but if knight takes b4, queen takes b4, and white's going to pick up a piece. So, king g8, and bishop takes c6. White picks up a piece anyway. So now he's got 2 pieces for a rook and 3 pawns. So a rook and 3 pawns against 2 pieces should be a good enough material advantage to win, but you can't worry about material if you're getting mated. So also black can't use this rook on h8. It's hemmed in by the king. So it's getting very complicated. This bishop on e6 is a horrible piece. The queen is out of play. Well, it's not out of play, but it's way far away from the king, as well as this knight on a4 is not really doing much. Rook f2, and obviously queen e4. White can just take it, and now he's going to have 3 pieces for a rook and 3 pawns. No way. So queen b3, kind of forced by rook f2, and so now it really can't come back. So knight a5, and now the queen is not quite trapped. Queen d3 was a thought, but 3 pieces for a rook and 3 pawns, and this rook on h8. Black is going to be screwed here, and also, I mean, bishop c2 coming. So knight a5, queen's, black is getting rounded up here, and so he tries to just sack the queen. And if knight takes, pawn takes, and in this position, I mean, white's got a queen for a rook and 3 pawns. Black can try to hold on. It's possible, but it's going to be tough. And instead, Kamsky plays knight takes c6, and this seems not quite forced to the end, but almost. And putting pressure on black's queen, sealing it in. And knight g5. Great move by Kamsky. Akobian's down to 1 minute. Kamsky's got 18 minutes. There's also the time control for the game is 90 minutes and 30-second increment. So an increment's keeping Akobian alive. And after knight g5, open up the H file. In combination with this knight on e7 seems to be a mating attack. And rook f3 here makes sense. I first looked at the move rook f4 and I realized it doesn't. Maybe just g6 after that doesn't quite work. Seems good enough for perpetual check. So rook f4 seems spectacular, but not quite getting it done. So rook f3, and Kamsky decides to cash in on that queen. Takes, and bishop a3, preparing to swing the bishop over to this diagonal, try to put the queen on h6, and that's gonna end the game, and also to stop the pawn from promoting. Rook b8 makes sense. Black's got to push that pawn, and after queen g3. The dark squares around Black's king are just too weak, and so he plays g4. Now here I thought that b2 was the move for Black, and I'm not exactly sure. I don't analyze any of my games with a computer, so I'm not exactly sure what the deal is. I mean, it just seems like I don't know why that doesn't work. b2. I mean, Black is still going to be lost. Don't get me wrong. White can just march the h-pawn up, and the bishop is terrible on e6. d5 is weak. White will still win. But it seemed like b2 was the best fighting chance. Instead, g4, and now a forced win. Check, h4, check on f6, and now bishop c1. And here, Akobian resigned in light of, let's say, I don't really see any other way to defend. I mean, let's say b2 and check, and that's mate. So Akobian resigned in this position. So a fantastic game in round 2. Kamsky has 1.5 points out of 2, and if he keeps playing in this form, he's going to be extremely difficult to stop. So this is Will Stewart from OnlineChessLessons.net, and thanks for tuning in.